it there, I'll make it anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast here on Facebook Live and YouTube. With me, my man from Long Island, currently on his way to Cooperstown, Richard Dorney. How you doing, bro?
What's up, buddy? How are you?
Not bad, man. Trying to stay awake. You know, at our age, when you get that constant rain, it kind of makes you want to hit the snooze. But taking Noah to martial arts later, and
Speak for
yeah.
yourself. I'm a virile young man.
On today's show, we're going to speak on Game of the Century #2, because Game 3 certainly didn't live up to that billing between the Boston Celtics and our beloved New York Knicks. We are going to hit on the pulse of Major League Baseball right now. Definitely going to speak on our teams, the New York Yankees and New York Mets, respectively. And just talk about the way that we see things going right now in MLB. But we're going to start it up on the hardwood. Rich, what adjustments, if you're Coach Tom Thibodeau, do you think you have to make to give the Knicks an honest chance of taking the commanding 3-1 lead?
Before we say anything, typically I am such a Yankee hater that I am a Boston supporter, so it's not too often that I get to say this, but fuck Boston.
I like it.
So what I think, I am a diehard baseball fan. We can sit here and talk baseball all day, every day. I love the Knicks. Obviously you get more into them come the playoffs. I watched them in that Detroit series, and they seem to me to be a team that is built just like that, right? They're a team, they play together, they work well together. They also seem to be a team that responds, right? And you and I have been around enough years to witness some of those teams that do better on the road. The 07 Giants, right? I think their Super Bowl rings say Road Warriors on them.
Yes.
The Mets last year took to the road to do what they needed to do. Sometimes people and then teams are just built in a way where the pressure is on them and they respond better. And New York is a rough place to be. I don't think home court advantage is always the best thing. And I watched that game, and once the fans were out of it, they were out of it. And say for what you will, but the Knicks getting booed constantly, or the noise being made when they were in Boston, it kind of fuels them, right? You see that. So I think being up against going flat to the series and going back to Boston, losing 2 games at home, gives them some energy. I think Tibbs is doing everything that he's supposed to be doing. The concern with this team and the way that he manages them is always right? That they're going to be exhausted and that, the starters play a lot of the game, but it seems to have been working. And I'm not sure that there's too much in terms of adjustments to make. I think control of the ball is probably something. I mean, if you look at Boston in that game 3, it looked like after, I think, what was it, Tatum, when he went to take that 3 when they were up by like 15 or whatever, Boston wasn't running the clock down at all, which I think was giving the Knicks the opportunity to come back, and then they made that adjustment. So now I think maybe we have to speed things up, but that's my opinion.
I pitched an idea the other day that I think could potentially work. As you know, Mitchell Robinson brings a great plus value in terms of just, winning the battle when he is in the game. However, the free throws have been a big, big issue. I believe that if you want to limit the hack-a-Mitch routine, it might behoove Tom Thibodeau to put Mitch in the starting lineup, let him get maybe honestly about 4 or 5 minutes in, and then bring Josh Hart right off the bench. Josh Hart still gets the bulk of the minutes, and you could kind of mix and match maybe at the last 2 minutes of the quarter, where fouling anyone for that matter might not be of the best value. But I think early on in the game, they're not going to be fouling Mitch because you don't want to get in the penalty with your starters. So I think it's a way to kind of prohibit Boston from going in on the hack-a-Mitch. On the contrast, the other part that could go wrong is that you have two big men on the floor that are going to be stretched out to the perimeter trying to guard three-point shots, and it's going to thin you out on defensive rebounding. So there's a couple of ways to look at it, but I do think that's a way that you could prevent the hack-a-Mitch. Not to mention Josh Hart's all energy, and I think coming off the bench, he and Deuce McBride bodes well for the Knicks. And I also like the idea of when you have both McBride and Brunson on the court. Two ball handlers is a good thing. And if Brunson's shot is falling flat, similar to what he did in game 2, you got to get the ball out and get other guys going. And he was able to do that with Josh Hart. He was able to do that with Deuce. Cat's a go, even though he's having some issues with that hand. But the one genuine concern is the Knicks have been down by 20 or more in each of the first 3 games. Boston finally was able to keep their lead and never look back. But I also think that just like you can't get used to a team missing 46 three-pointers in one game, you also can't expect them that they're going to shoot the lights out like that either. So the Knicks have to stick to their identity, play hard-nosed defense, but undeniably two things got to go better. You got to take better care of the basketball, and you got to get through those picks and be able to stay to your men that was the biggest problem. Uncontested threes. If guys are going to make great shots and you're playing defense, I can live with that. But when you're getting all these uncontested threes, it was just a little nauseating to watch after a while.
Yeah, and there's not much that you and I can do about this, but if you look at one of the things that I think is missing from this Knicks team versus the teams that we grew up with, it's what we, the fans, are not doing. I mean, I've never like, you watch in game 3, everything just goes quiet. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's because we were younger and you looked at things differently. I just went back and looked at some YouTube clips the last few weeks to kind of just reminisce on those old playoff runs, and the Garden was just crazy. When they got down, it was crazy. It was just crazy all the time. You get these people paying these big prices to come in here and see this team play. I mean, I just don't think that they have what it takes to stay loud and to stay consistent and to keep the Celtics, pressed and keep the Knicks running. And I think it's something to be said. I mean, the Garden is the Garden. They need to get up and make some noise.
No, I couldn't agree more, Rich, and I agree with your sentiments because I remember those great battles of the 90s, whether it was against Miami, Indiana, or Chicago. Those were the 3 premier rivals that we had during that decade. We broke even with Indiana. Our only win against Chicago was, of course, the season that Michael Jordan didn't play.
No, Jordan.
And we got the best of Miami for the most part, with the exception of P.J. Brown body slamming Charlie Ward. But no, I'm with you, Rich. Those MSG crowds were built different, and I don't know if it's too much of the celebrity element. I don't know if it's too much about people just waiting for something to happen. But you and I can attest to this even on the baseball spectrum. People can say whatever they want about what team they root for. But if you go to Citi Field and you're hanging around the 7 line, you're going to get that constant energy and very knowledgeable baseball people. And you're going to get the same thing when you go to Yankee Stadium and you're hanging with the bleacher creatures. Those are the creme de la creme of everyday, hardworking, real fans. And I couldn't agree with you more on that, Rich. I really couldn't. I
Yeah,
sat
I
with you
think
in the 7 line, with the exception of one douchebag. Exceptional fans, and really know the game of baseball. And I must admit that I thoroughly enjoyed myself talking baseball as a visitor in a high stakes game with the rival crosstown rivals. I very knowledgeable baseball people, I must admit.
I'm excited to watch the game. I'm hopeful, and I think the Knicks will take it. And that's really all they had to do is to win one of these two and go back to Boston up 3-1. Put the pressure on the Celtics, have them press, have them try to push those 3-pointers, and have the defense come in. I mean, Bridges can be a star for a third time, and we'll see what happens. But I think the Knicks head back to Boston up 3-1. Let the air out of the balloon for the Celtics, and either take it the next game or the game after. But I don't see this series going deeper than Game 6.
From your mouth to God's ears, Rich, I really hope that what we witnessed in Game 3 is more of an anomaly and maybe just kind of like them coming out a little flat and a little tight, because it's not always easy to come back home when you have kind of established that road warrior mentality. I mean, dude, you made the mention of the G-Men in '07. You and I attended the uh, the final
The
game of
clinch
the 2011
game, yeah.
regular season, where we had to win at home. But going into that game, we were only 3-4 at MetLife, as opposed to having a very dominant road record. And that particular Giant team ultimately beat a great San Francisco team on the road to go to the bowl. They had to also go to Lambeau, who the Packers had the best record trying to repeat. They were 15-1 that year. So there is something to be said about galvanizing a team when you're going through these battles on the road, and sometimes at home it doesn't feel the same. But bottom line is, the Knicks have to win tonight. This is literally the biggest game, I would have to say, since the '99 series against Indy, or maybe the 2000 series against Indy, which was Patrick Ewing's final season. It's been a long, rough go for Knick fans, with the exception of that one enjoyable season with Melo, Amare, Jay Kidd, and co. But I'm excited, Rich. I think that this is going to be a real war tonight. I don't think the Knicks are going to get just smacked around like they did the other day, and I think I expect both teams to play well. One of the compliments I gave Coach Tom Thibodeau is that I thought he outcoached Joe Mazzulla in Game 2. And I hope we see more of that tonight. I really do. And I hope the captain, Jalen Brunson, is on. It's very rare that he has 3 subpar games. Although he scored 27 points, I don't think he played a great game up to his standard. And I expect a lot more out of Jalen tonight. But OG Anunoby is the X factor. We need that man's offense.
I'm excited.
Yeah, buddy. It's going to be exciting. Like I said, it's been a long time. But one thing I will say before we move it over to MLB, a constant topic has been who won the trade between the Minnesota Timberwolves and our New York Knicks. Of course, Dante DiVincenzo, a fan favorite, and the
And
embattled
Randall.
Julius Randle. You know, some people loved him, some people were over him. I respect Julius. He was the first star to come over and give us some reputability. But I would call the trade even. But I will say one thing: if the trade doesn't go down, I think that we have a little more depth on our bench with the way things work. But it was a trade that needed to happen because of the departure of Isaiah Hartenstein. You needed a big man, and Cat is a walking double-double. And I would do the trade over again if I had to. I do hope that the big Ragu finds his way back to NYC after next season, as he, of course, is great friends with Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brunson, and Josh Hart. So I hope to see the big Ragu back in New York where he enjoyed playing. But that would be a dream NBA Finals, Minnesota and the Knicks, to play against our former teammates.
I would. I'd love to see it. That means we got pretty far. seeing Indiana on the horizon, and you get some PTSD when you think about that.
Yeah, because it's a mixed bag. Reggie Miller with that ridiculous 2 threes and the 2 free throws in 8 point whatever seconds back in '95. That was the same series where Ewing missed a finger roll. The Knicks essentially had to win 5 games in that series because game one they should have won. But then the other side of it is the previous year, where Starks misses a late layup and Ewing comes over the top strong side and pumps it down with 2 hands. So definitely, an exciting time whenever the Pacers and Knicks get together.
You know that the Knicks have the new pope on their side too, being a Villanova graduate. So maybe there's a little bit of holy power heading in through the Nova boys tonight.
Yeah, I mean, that is a huge advantage when you consider how long these guys have been playing together. My kid is going berserk. I got him this Go Ninja $50 Lego set, and he's like really putting it together. So he's having a good time with that right now. But they didn't have that stuff that cool when we were kids, Rich. They didn't have Legos like that. They gave us like the basic stuff. Rich, you still hearing me okay, bud? All right. It seems like we might have lost Rich for a moment. He's traveling upstate towards Cooperstown, so I'm going to keep the conversation free flowing until we get Rich back. Oh, here he is. He didn't go far. How
Sorry.
much did you miss of that? No, yeah, you're good, brother. I was bringing up Legos. Noah is real fired up about this Ninja Go set that he put. I got dropped $50 on this thing, but it is a pretty cool set. But my living room has been taken over by all of Noah's Lego creations.
I have no patience for Legos. I love my children very much, but that is not in my wheelhouse.
One thing I got to give Noah credit for, he gets them done quick, man. He's like determined. So hopefully that translates into, putting together maybe office stuff, things of that nature. Because as you recall, a couple of years ago, we were enjoying some of the Whistle Pig whiskey, and I think we missed a couple of things on that, and we had to do a few detours. But nonetheless, it was a good time.
Chair still works.
That's all that matters. That's all that matters, pal. And
so
I know that you wouldn't have the audacity to bring the Shea Stadium chairs into the living room. I know that that's a rule that you honor.
As I head up to Cooperstown here.
You're doing awesome, kiddo. Say hi to your uncle real quick before we get back on our topics.
Hello, Uncle Zappy.
Hey, now.
That's Uncle Dorney, buddy. That's not.
Oh, Dorney? It says Zappy.
Look at that handsome guy. Oh, that's Zappy. That's our cover art. But you see, look at that face right there. That's Uncle Dorney.
Oh, sorry. I didn't see it.
That's okay.
I saw it say Zappy.
Yeah, Zappy's picture is underneath Uncle Dorney's, and Mr. Idris is behind mine. All right, kiddo. I'm going to talk to Uncle Dorney, okay? Sorry about that, Rich.
As I head up to Cooperstown here for work stuff, I told you earlier I'm getting ready for a little Subway Series action this Sunday in the Bronx. And I wouldn't be me if I didn't tell you that I was going to wear my Soto.
You're wearing your Soto jersey. What kind of Soto jersey is that? Is that the traditional home? Is that the City Connect?
I got the new the one-piece Road Blues.
Road Blues, okay. How do you like that City Connect jersey that the Mets wear now?
I like it a lot. I like all the thought that went into it. My only critique, and I think I've told you this, is I would have preferred them to have the word Queens in the front of the jersey instead of NYC. But I
tend to agree. For
the rest of the country, I don't think it would have registered as much. So I think from a marketing perspective, I understand it. I also will give the Yankees credit for the fact that their jersey, is such a piece of history. To not have a City Connect jersey makes total sense for me.
Yeah, I know that some folks were a little irritated that the Yankees are so hard on that. With only the moderate change that we made with the lettering being black, which was which was actually a throwback to years before. Moderate changes in the uniform. The 73 pinstripes were a little wider. Moderate things. But yes, the Yankees have never come off that. And the Yankees are the one team in Major League Baseball that never has a name on the back of the jersey. I know. I'll put it to you like this, Rich. I personally think that names on a Yankee jersey would cheapen the look of the jersey, particularly on the
Yeah,
pinstripes. It just would look weird, bro.
and I think the only other team to not have a City Connect jersey yet is the Athletics, and that's because they don't have a city. So
Then
makes
that makes
makes sense.
perfect sense. Yankees did take 2 out of 3 against those Athletics. Now, off air, I made a mention to you about an idea that I had. And I think the world of Paul Goldschmidt, going back to his heyday with the Cardinals, his NL MVP seasons, etc. He's been good in the National League in general on his 2 stops. But if you're the Yankees, and if you feel comfortable enough that Ben Rice is your answer at first base for the long term, and you know that you can't get rid of that albatross contract in Giancarlo Stanton, would you consider trading Paul Goldschmidt if you could get adequate pitching help for this rotation?
Yeah, I mean, if you
Because
have a piece to
it's only
slide
a
in,
1-year deal. That's kind of where I'm going with this.
sure. But in turn, what are you getting for it? Right, you're just getting a rental as well. So
Yeah, it would have to be worth it.
you're looking at the only plausible deal you see with that is uh, a team that's in a similar scenario to you in that they're playoff bound. They probably have a glut at pitching and are missing a bat or somebody at that position. Because that's really the only matchup that you see there, right? If you're trading a rental off for a rental, it's got to be somebody who needs what you have and vice versa.
And I'll tell you the funny part of this is that it could be familiar ground because one of the few teams that actually would make sense could be the Arizona Diamondbacks because of their plethora of starting pitching.
I can see it.
And I love Goldie. Don't get me wrong; he's not doing anything wrong. He's doing far better than Anthony Rizzo in his final 2 seasons in the Bronx. Father Time and the injuries. After that Tatis collision, he was never right. But no, Goldie's doing just fine. But the problem is that with that Stanton contract, you can't have the benefit of Rice being your full-time DH for the remainder of the season because minutes are playing time rather is going to be cut drastically when Giancarlo returns unless if Ben Rice was able to pick up third base similarly to how Jazz Chisholm did last year.
So I don't have enough skin in the game to dig in daily to the Yankees, but I remember at some point in the start of the season, there was a belief that not only that Don't Call Me Mike Stanton wasn't coming back this season, but he might not be coming back at all.
Yeah, I did read conflicting reports on that. I thought it was a little odd that he opted to wait to get surgery. I personally think that he's comfortable with where his service in the league is, and we have fun with him. A lot of New York sports fans, whether you're a Met or a Yankee, do have fun with him. But one thing that I will credit him for is that he's never crumbled under the negative pressure when he is going through those ratchet slumps. Like, one thing that I got to give the man credit for is that he has always showed up in October. And that is invaluable because when you look at Aaron Judge, possibly the best player in the game, the one thing that eludes him, besides, of course, the World Series trophy, is just playing better in October in general. That is the one thing that hangs over Aaron Judge because he is a brilliant player. And in my opinion, possibly the greatest right-handed hitter in the history of the league when it's all said and done.
So you brought up the Yankees played the Athletics. Was it at home in the Bronx or away?
No, sir. We were on the West Coast. We took 2 out of 3.
So you saw that terrible AAA park that they were playing in?
Yeah, it was pretty rough.
I mean, the Mets were there it's reminiscent of the Long Island Duck Stadium out here. I mean, it's sad to see what that organization has become. I mean, I know that they're going to find a forever home and put back to a major league stadium, but I mean, you could hit a home run easier in that stadium than even right field in the Bronx. And I watched quite a few fly out when the Mets were there.
Yeah, really a nice sort of a stadium. It's unfortunate, because they're a team with a very rich history and a team that has won quite a bit. They are in the top 5 in World Series victories. And, you got some great players that have walked through there, really great players. McGuire was there before he went over to St. Louis. You've had Reggie Jackson there. One of the greatest closers in history who sometimes gets easily forgotten, Dennis Eckersley. Of course, the late, great Ricky Henderson, Carney Lansford. Many, many greats that played there.
Jason Giambi.
Yeah, Giambi had an MVP year there. Jose Canseco, whether you like him or hate him, he was a hell of a player there as well, being a 40-40 man. Raleigh Fingers, if you want to take it back a minute. They've had some phenomenal players. But, yeah, it's kind of sad to see what became of there. And I remember when they were still in Oakland, when the Yankees were doing a telecast, Meredith Marakovitz was hanging out with Michael Kay and Paul O'Neill in the booth, and a rat got in there. I'm like watching the game at midnight, and I'm hearing Meredith scream because a rat snuck into the Yankees broadcast. I was like, wow. and believe me, the old Yankee Stadium had its share of imperfections and issues, as did the old Shea. But that's
Shea
next level. Yeah, but a lot of people say that about Giant Stadium too. But the thing with places like that, or even that dump in Philly called the Vet that actually had a holding cell in there.
You could just stop that the dump is Philly. That would have been an acceptable answer.
Okay, we'll leave it there. We're going to slide it over to, last question about my Yanks before we slide it over to your team. Obviously, we know that Devin Williams was demoted to a lesser role, less high leverage situations for now. And I'm happy that Aaron Boone identified it early, because last year he cost us a lot of ball games hanging with Clay Holmes too late. Of course, Clay Holmes is now a starter and doing rather well with your New York Mets. But Luke Weaver deserves to close for now, and we'll see how it plays out. I just hope that this is not Sonny Gray or Kevin Brown or even the great Randy Johnson, who just wasn't meant to play in New York, all over again. You got certain guys that just aren't meant to play for the Yankees, and I'm starting to wonder if Devin Williams is one of those guys. And, you sent me an interesting metric about how the two careers have won in complete different directions after Pete Alonso took him deep in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, I thought it would be even cooler and I actually fed it into ChatGPT to see if it could do the work for me a couple of weeks ago. I wanted to try to see if there were any other correlations to players intersecting and where their careers turned. It's too difficult for me to try to navigate. I'll do some homework on my own and see what we come up with, but I think it's really a point to be made. I mean, Pete's career has turned to a complete different place, right? I'm pretty sure if it wasn't already in the works, I mean, the fact that he kept the Mets afloat and basically took us into that next series, kind of put him back on the team. Devin Williams has not done anything really, been anywhere close to what he was since that pitch. And baseball, sports in general, but I think baseball a lot because it's a very singular performance sport. It gets in their head, right? Like, how many different guys?
I mean, we've seen it happen. And guys have left the Bronx, or even your team. Guys have left Queens. It's still the same market, and have been okay in lesser environments.
Yeah,
and what I mean by lesser environments is away from the bright lights, because Met fans and Yankee fans are incredibly intense and not very patient. And that's the
Now,
state of New York, dude. New Yorkers are not patient. New Yorkers want it, and they want it now.
especially when there's a lot of money attached to your name.
Absolutely. And I understand it. And that's why, when you make it on that level for a New York team, it's different than any other environment in professional sport, whether you're doing it for the Yankees, the Mets, the Knicks, or you're doing it on the ice. You know, those ticker tape parades. And yes, our G-men do not play in the state of New York, but you know where the parade goes? Through the Canyon of Heroes. You want me to
Well,
show Uncle Dorney? All right. Quick detour. And then
I'm driving.
we're gonna
My Ninjago Lego set. There's this. And then there's
I can't
Kai.
see. I'm in my car.
There's Kai.
well, Uncle Dorney will watch the episode later, so he'll be able to look at this.
And then there's
Because Uncle Dorney's in the car.
Dragons Rising. And then there's I don't know his name. Cinder.
All right. We're gonna talk about the Mets, Noah. I'll be back. I'm gonna talk with Uncle Dorney about the Mets. All right, Rich.
So
Obviously you
good
gotta
transition
be
to.
feeling good.
They're doing great.
Rich, I think you may be hitting a dead spot. Rich, you there, bud?
I am. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead, buddy.
No?
Talking about the Mets. Yeah, I hear you. You're good.
So, transition to what you were saying about us not being patient. I was at a game this year, first couple weeks of baseball, where, Soto struck out twice at home and got booed. And it drove me nuts, honestly. I mean, I know that fans, that word comes from it's a lot more fanatic versus fan. And I know we spent a lot of money to have this guy come here, but the average fan is not paying attention to the fact that this entire lineup has changed just by having Soto in the lineup. And Alonso is having a banner year right now because he's getting pitches that are going his way because they're not pitching to Soto. And in the last 15 or so games, I saw this morning, Soto's heating up. 5 home runs, batting .345. He's doing what he's supposed to be doing.
The only thing that I didn't like that Soto did, and I don't think he meant it maliciously, I just don't think he thought about it fully. In the beginning, where he was really struggling, he made a comment which big up Aaron Judge, which is all well and good because there's a mutual respect there about hitting in front of Judge and getting some quality pitches. But Pete Alonso is proving that he is definitely no slouch, and he's playing for a bigger contract, whether in Queens or elsewhere. So I guess I didn't really care for Soto.
But what he was saying is basically what I'm saying, right? Pete's getting those at bats because Soto is the judge in this equation now, right? Comparatively, because Judge wasn't getting the pitches as much as Soto was. I mean, I was at a game in the Bronx last year where I watched the Mets and the Yankees play, and I was totally in on the fact that Mendoza was pitching to Soto and walking Judge. And that's just what was happening. And that was the plan, right? That's what a lot of teams did to your team last year.
Absolutely. So, and it worked. It worked like a charm for you guys because you guys did sweep us last year.
And that's what's happening here, and he's going to have to accept it. And I think he has. I mean, listen, he's maintained. He's been happy. It's been a positive. I would be remiss to not repeat what I said to you when we spoke earlier. I mean, what a man crush I have on Frankie Lindor. I mean, across the board, on and off the field. Dad talks about his family constantly. He's always in a good place, always in a good mood, always being positive. I watch him intently and he analyzes what's going on. He gets to that plate and slows down. And it's at anytime he gets up there, the game can change, and it's amazing to watch. And it's amazing
I
to watch what he does in
remember.
that clubhouse.
I remember the thing I respect about Lindor. One of his best friends in MLB is actually former Yankee Gio Urshela,
Yep.
as those two came up together. Great competitor. I remember a couple of years ago during the Subway Series, Wandy Peralta and Lindor had a memorable battle, which Wandy won and ultimately won the Yankees the game. And Lindor was having a hell of a game, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I was comfortable about it. But Lindor, to his credit, praised Wandy for getting the best of him in that 14 pitch battle. And that is what you're getting. You're getting a guy who loves the game and appreciates the nuances of the game, even if it doesn't go his way. And I think it speaks a lot to that you're getting a player that when he's in a slump is never going to get too down on himself. And when he's on top of the world, he's going to keep himself humble. And I think that's important and you know what that attitude reminds me of? Another great shortstop that played in that great city. And of course, I'm talking about number 2, Derek Jeter.
My least favorite baseball player of all time.
And that's okay.
One,
Behind Nestor.
one in front
Chase
of
Utley.
one in front of Chase Utley. So you
But you
probably would.
but you get the
Yeah, no,
analogy,
I
right?
understand, and I said it to you earlier. I said that he is to the Mets this run as Jeter was. He's the clubhouse captain, and he's doing everything else. Which, by the way, I wouldn't be surprised if when they retire David Wright's number this year, they also announce that Lindor is going to be the captain, because I think it's coming.
Well,
He's
I
doing
feel that
everything
he's
he's
earned it.
supposed to be doing.
I feel that he's earned it.
Of course.
And, that is the most important position in the infield.
He also, I don't know if you know this, as you don't follow the Mets as closely as I do, but we are on pace. So we've had plenty of seasons where you've had at least 2 players go 30 or better in home runs. There's potential for the first time ever for the Mets to have 3 players in a lineup hit more than 30. And if Nimmo continues on the way that he's going, because he's already got 9, which is a jump for him at this point of the year, we could even have a 4th player hit over 30 home runs this year. So you're looking at Soto, Lindor, and Pete probably breaking that mark, which would be a pretty awesome thing to see. Alonso's definitely going to overtake Strawberry this season for club home runs. There's a lot of story written here this year with the Mets. Being this,
I said it to
in
you
front
off
of it
air.
still, 2.5 up.
Yeah. The margin between you and Philly and us in Boston is right around the same. The thing with this Mets team this season that has been encouraging, just because I consider myself an unbiased baseball fan, and I do want you guys to have success because I think it's good for the city and I think it's good for our crosstown rivalry. It would be beautiful to have another Subway Series. But the thing is, it's the starting pitching that has really surprised me with your team, because coming into the year, I felt that if Atlanta was playing more like Atlanta, they have picked up the pace after that horrific start. Or, the Phillies have been a thorn in the Mets side for years, but last year was huge for the morale beating them. I think what I'm getting at is your starting pitching has over exceeded anyone's expectations, as their team ERA is the best in all of Major League Baseball. And that is massive when you consider that your offense is already flowing in a good direction. Rich, you still with me? Rich, you still with me? I'm going to give Rich a couple of seconds to get back in. And unfortunately, if we lose him, I'm going to try to wrap this up. Looks like we lost him. I imagine that the reception in upstate New York is not the best. but I'm going to give him a minute to come back on. But yeah, I'm going to continue on my point about the Mets. The starting pitching has just been terrific, and these are not necessarily household names. And this is a club that brought in the likes of Hall of Famers Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander. They lost another future Hall of Famer in Jacob deGrom, and these guys are pitching at a high level. I mean, Clay Holmes was the embattled former closer of the Yankees, and he has stepped up and become a quality starter for the New York Mets, which speaks volumes about the job that the coaching in terms of pitching is doing right now. But I'll be honest, I don't see it as. Oh, I see it as. I see it as a team that is not here just for an early flavor of the month good start. I think these guys are for real. And me being a humble Yankee fan, I call it like I see it. The Mets are going to be here for a while. And, people could say that Juan Soto chose them for the money. I mean, who wouldn't take that contract? But he also chose them for the window of opportunity to win. And the Mets have a very good nucleus to be good for a long time. Unfortunately, it looks like Rich might not be back. So for Richie, I am Richie. Have a great day, everyone. And if you haven't already, please make it a point to like and subscribe to the channel, the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast on YouTube. Have a great day, everyone. And I'm sure I will get Richie back in the near future to get on this some more for baseball. And go Knicks. Let's go, guys. I'm out.